All right, guys, so we're going to do some rock sculpting in this one. I'm just going to use the techniques that work for myself, but there's a lot of different ways you might approach this. We're going to get started here in Krita. We're going to do a little breakdown of these rocks real quick. Now, this is in a quarry, so they're being chopped up basically and pulled apart, but you can see here there's like some big scrape marks going up and down over here and whatnot. And like cut clean even. So the main thing here, though, is that when rocks fracture, and this happens a lot when they fall as well. So there's like these big shapes that are created. And so this is what we're focusing on creating is these shapes, right? It's what matters most. These kind of cubic, almost trapezoidal-like shapes. And when we're sculpting these out, it's very easy to do. Okay, so on top of that, we're just looking for the edges, like the main edges of these. There's like some in the middle, and little cracks and crevices and things like that. So you can definitely do this more stylized or more realistic like. Just going to play around with the idea of sculpting them, but you'll want to do probably something like a kit bash almost. Go into edit mode, just modify a cube. I go sculpt mode, remesh it, and then press R and Control R to do that. And then just use the scraper, probably full strength even, to start working this thing out. Um, Rather fast. And I like to kind of do it like they're bricks almost. That's the way I look at them, anyways. Might leave some a little bit more squared up, perhaps, but I think of them as like little bricks, and then that's it, right? So once you start one, you can do another cube maybe, and make another one, or you can just keep using that one. Just keep scraping at it a little bit more, give it some different angles, proportions, things like that. I'll continue this one out like so. Maybe make a really big cut here. Okay. We'll make a couple of these real quick, just slight variations. Control R, remesh it. Let's see if we can't make this one more flat like. Okay. You see these ones are maybe a little bit too similar. Let's scale that one up like this. Remesh it. And we'll do this. Okay. Right. So just different shape now, right? And what you do is you more than likely you can use these to just start creating more interesting arrangements or formations or whatever. Whether they're natural or more like the query there, but just go into edit mode. Whoop, save that for later. Go into edit mode. You can do things like this a lot of times. Just start laying them out. I try to scale in object mode, or excuse me, edit mode, not object mode, so we don't have to reset the scales or reapply them anyways. So maybe this one we just stretch out a little and then duplicate it, rotate it. Try out different ideas here. You rotate it like this. This one could be a little bit larger, perhaps. Just sink it into there a little more. We can get a nice little arrangement or kind of a little fit there. That's good. Kind of make them work together. Keep them separated because you'll be able to work with them a little bit better as you do this. Probably could have made this more little bit more narrow, perhaps. As you see, it's not quite working out. Maybe exactly the way I'd want it to. It's close, but it's not quite there. So there's a little bit of trial and error in this. You'll get the hang of it though. But once you've kind of got them going, you can select all of them. If you get an error going into sculpt mode, it says scale's not uniform. Just grab them all, Control A, apply scale. You can go to sculpt mode, Alt Q between them if needed. Okay. Still use the scraper if you need to, and you can just make modifications to them and sync them around, like sync one into the other maybe. And just start working them out a little bit more. Something like that. And look at your reference images, try to make them, as accurate as you can. Mine are going to be a little bit wrong here because I'm just kind of going through it too fast, but you can definitely work them out to make them look really nice anyways. Remesh them, or when you do remesh them, make them as detailed as you need them for the most part. There's a lot of cool little like brush or like tricks that you would do in ZBrush that I really don't know the exact way you might do them in Blender. So there's some downsides, I guess, to sculpting in Blender sometimes, but there's a number of tutorials out there on how to do stylized rocks. Not too many on realistic rocks, though. Not YouTube, anyways. Not that I found, anyways. But yeah, you can do some things like that, perhaps, and just get them looking real nice. You can use all your sculpting tools, so like you can use like snake hook, kind of drag things around a little bit if you want to add a little bit of curvature. Certainly is possible. You can use the grab tool to shift things around as well. Kind of reposition them and make them nicer, perhaps. Continue with the scrape tool as well. And also you can do the trim tool here is really useful. So this is based off the normal. It's basically a scraper with normal lock. So like if we start scraping here, everything's flat already for the most part, so it doesn't do much. But if we start scraping inwards, it goes on that normal basically. So it does that number. You use these smaller, generally speaking. I'm going to remesh this a little higher. And use it a little bit smaller and you can start doing like edge breakups. But it is a circle right now, right? So you see that? You might want to use an alpha. Go to the texture tab, click new, open. And what you'll want to do is go to Photoshop and create a square alpha. It's going to look something like this. You can make a sharp one if you want, or a soft, like add a Gaussian blur to it. And just make sure that square fits within the circle here, right? You'll notice it's soft. Fall off right now has a bug if I use constant. You see it's yeah, something wrong with it. But if we use custom and set it to constant, it works fine for some reason. So but we can use this to kind of chisel up edges basically. Give it some detail. Usually smaller, and you want to pick your brush up, or your graphics tablet, like your pen. You want to pick it up and drop it a lot. You don't want to stay in one spot. You can see that little extra resolution there helps a lot. So it's also useful maybe to do that when doing the scrapes originally too. Right. But you can work out like edge damage and stuff like that. And you can hold control and refill areas too, which is kind of fun. So if you need to do that. But I haven't figured out a great way of working with the cavity there to create edge masks. Otherwise, I would probably show you a little bit more of the stylized stuff. But this is about how it would go. For me, anyways, I would probably scrape up the edges a little bit, oftentimes just using a regular scraper. can do a square alpha as well. And just use that, set the fall off. Same way. Remesh it when needed. Scrape things up. This one gets a little bit weird when using it. There's a little trick to this. You'll want to play with the normal radius, and what this does is from the center of the brush, it's going to use the normal under the brush within a certain radius, right? So that little dot in the middle, if it's real small, it's going to be closer to the center, but if it's larger, it's going to be averaged over the whole circle. So, you can set that a little bit higher, and sometimes this creates a more predictable behavior to the brush, but you can see like it kind of bevels or chamfers edges a little bit more. And then it might work out pretty well like that for you, but if you make it smaller, it tends to sharpen up the edges more. So, but it doesn't work as good on like curvature and whatnot. So, but you can see like it tries to rotate already. And for me, this is okay because usually I'm going for more realistic style, like rocks, not necessarily stylized. So I'd rather just chisel off the edges with this one. And it works out pretty well. You probably do it on stylized as well, right? Probably wouldn't matter that much. I tend to soften these a little bit more than I probably should. But just working up to the edges is very easy. They get a little bit more rounded. It's a long process begins where you're trying to get this all to just, do right and look okay and all that. It happens. Takes a little while. Get Alt Q and go scrape up other things and remesh them individually if needed. I'm going to fly through this real quick. Just try to tighten these up a little bit more. Try not to remesh them too high for the video. Just enough. Generally, your sculpting rocks, they're going to be for a couple things you're going to do with it. You're going to bake out more than likely a detail normal for your game mesh, but you'll use the rest of the bake curvature and everything for setting up your masks when you're in Substance Painter. Because you're going to be doing more than likely material blending, and you'll need to control a lot of things with those masks, perhaps, or using the curvature to create those masks. Anyways, we'll get through this, I promise. You can always like do big edits still. One of the great things about the remesher is you can do that. Eventually you can combine them all together. Works out quite well. A lot of your brushes, you'll want to customize them too as you're working with them. Try them with pressure sensitive radius, pressure sensitive strength. If you're using a graphics tablet like myself, change the size around a lot with F, Shift F for strength. And then all of these settings in here, you can kind of go through these and start to learn them. Just something like normal radius makes a huge difference. Doing stabilized normal or plane is also makes a pretty big difference. So little things like that can kind of add up. The remesher is locked, the newer version of Blender here, so that it doesn't like overdo, like you don't crash Blender by overdoing it basically. So like it locks out at a certain level here, and it shouldn't remesh, I think, higher than 3 million from that because of that new change or whatever. So if you ever have to go higher than that, you have to type it in up over there in the remesh section, which is actually a little bit annoying, but it definitely does save you from accidentally crashing Blender. So it's good, I guess, right? It's smaller now. We'll work in some areas. You can hold control, fill, scrape, fill, scrape. Do that number like that. until you get the looks you're looking for, you know, just look at your reference images and have a little fun with it. Eventually you'll get to a point where you take all these, you combine them together. So you got the whole thing, you control J it. Okay. And you can actually go back to sculpt mode, initialize facets by loose parts because we haven't remeshed it. They'll be loose still. So if you want facets, you can do that. So next time when you hit R and remesh it, do it at the max maybe. Just let it go. You'll see it went to 1 million or whatever it is. So it's a good call there. You could take it higher if you needed to, I guess. But yeah, we got facets. I don't personally use these a whole lot, but if you ever wanted to, you can now Shift H to hide everything but one, or press H to hide the others. You can go to Sculpt, and what you'll find is that you can actually invert visible right there. So if you ever need to do that, you could do that. Alt H should bring everything back, or Shift H on the same thing anyways. So you can always do cracks and crevices with like crease sharps. You can turn on pin pressure sensitivity for radius. And what this allows you to do is you get a little bit more finesse with it now, where you can actually like kind of feather it in like you're using a pencil or something. So that works out quite well sometimes if you need that. You still have the trim tool. You can use it much smaller. Push in a little and pick it up and drop it and just do some edge breakup. Use that square alpha, those super useful. You can start to dig into areas as well a little bit and then just hit the edges here. Might try this one with pin pressure sensitivity as well. Could work out for you as far as like the radius goes. Try that out. Do little cracks, crevices, things like that. You can remesh as needed as well. Okay. I'm going to turn the face sets. I'm not going to get rid of them. I'm just turning off the visual up there in the top right. So basically you can start working this way now. Maybe works pretty well for more stylized type stuff. And you can also use like the plateau tool if you really want to flatten a surface back out. You can do that. Also good on the edges sometimes, or near the edges. Very useful. Smooth tool, by the way, if you take the smooth tool and crank it to the max strength, it's a Laplacian smooth, so it actually flattens on like the normal underneath the little circle there. So you can actually use it to kind of like scrape away a little bit and do some interesting little effects with it, basically. So you can kind of just use it, and like right here, for example, we want to flatten out this area maybe. We keep working that one little area right on the faces, the big faces. Don't go over the edge there. It should, if it didn't spin me out of control. Oh, I'm upside down, that's why. All right, so it did what it should have, I guess. It should have, yeah, flatten the surface here. It did something like that. So smooth tool is really cool in that sense. See, you can flatten like right there. You can dig with the scraper a little bit if you wanted to. It's on you. If you're going to do that, you can hold control, bring surfaces out. You just basically go through and detail it up now on the edges if you're going for a more stylized look. Now, I don't usually do that. I don't do stylized a lot, but if we do something like the draw tool and click over here, create new and open. I'm going to try this with a texture from Ambient CG, I think. We'll see how it goes. So I got these rock materials from Ambient CG, right? They usually come with a height map or displacement map. And so what I'm going to do is take this and open it, set it to non-color. So we're using the just the values there instead of gamma corrected. And we're going to Alt E, we can change to anchored. That's under stroke, by the way. So if I press F and I make it a little bit larger, you can see what's going to happen here. I'm going to do this. Okay, and we'll get something like this going, which is okay. But here's the thing. If you look carefully when we do that, it rounds everything out, kind of destroys our shape. And a lot of times that's not what you want, right? So you need to adjust this because a sculpting tool doesn't work like a height map. It doesn't go in both in positive and negative. So what you want to do is try to make it more like a regular displacement map and go to colors. You can shrink the settings if you want to see the preview here. But you can change the brightness and contrast basically. So if we want to crank the brightness down and maybe increase the contrast a little, what we'll see is that now when we do this, we get something more like this. It doesn't quite destroy the surface as much as it used to. You definitely keep cranking it down though if you wanted to. Let's see if you can't get it to be very, very subtle, or decrease the contrast or increase the contrast. Play around with it for a little bit and see if you can't get different results out of it. Do a little less contrast here. Oh, looks like it's pushing in on the surface now, right? See? Okay, so this would it would change our shape quite a lot unless we turn the strength down, right? Then it doesn't do it quite as much, which is probably what you want to do. But there's a little kind of a little trick to this. You can overdo it a little bit. You got to be a little careful with the settings here, but you can kind of overdo these a little bit and try not to freak out while doing it, you know, because it's very easy to feel like you're doing the wrong things here. This is how I normally do things anyways, so I go crazy with it for just a moment. And sometimes they're directional, like the texture might be directional. So you want to make sure you lay it in the right way so it doesn't look artificial. But something like this, and so I'll scrape these and I'll go back through it and just start working it down. Lower strength maybe, or very light pressure. And I'll start working these out like this. And just kind of get, and usually like I can work like little islands sometimes. Do something like that. You can see a lot of that shape kind of sticks through still, even though we can barely see it. But not all of it's going to get preserved. So I don't usually count on the base there actually making it all the way through. Usually, I'm gonna keep working it, getting things going kind of the way I want. And you might think like, you know, like why would you do it like this, right? Well, I can start to flatten the surfaces first of all, and then but I don't have to worry about doing the edge breakup as much. And so to me, it just works out a lot better for getting it closer to photorealistic kind of result. So I'm not playing a guessing game of like what I'm creating. And I'll convert images of cliff rocks and stuff and do the same thing we're doing right now. It's nothing pretty much. So you see, I wouldn't say it even takes more time to do it this way. It's just a different way of doing it. It takes about the same amount, I guess. A lot of guys just like to go back and do all the edges and detail the edges up. And instead, I like to work the big flat faces kind of. You can hold control and do a fill as well if needed. Just don't go over any edges you want to keep sharp. The fill tool itself is also very good. It's very similar to the scraper. So you might want to try that out where you take the fill tool and just go through here, and if you use it as is, it's going to fill. So it's like raising the lower pits basically. If you hold control, it's actually a scraper. It behaves just like a scraper almost. So it's rather interesting. I'd probably wear down the surfaces here with a scraper because it kind of is the way like wind erosion or solar erosion, maybe hydraulic works. we get some of our form back anyways that we wanted. We can kind of knock these areas out. You can also use the trim tool at the same time if you wanted. Works out quite well. But yeah, doing it in very small little areas, just little chunks at a time. Really fun way of working. See how that works out. Then, use the fill tool later on because you're probably going to want to soften some of these areas as well. The scraper should hopefully start to work out the big stuff that's sticking out of the surface a lot. Then the fill will fill in those crevices, right? You can do it in like little taps as well. They don't have to do like the whole thing. You can just do like little selective areas basically. Tap it in a couple times, move on. And start working it out basically. Eventually it'll, after enough time, it will start to look really good. And you'll surprise yourself with what you can create basically. Start playing around with those sculpt tools a little bit more. It becomes a little bit nicer. You see our form here is not really all that interesting. So it could have been a little bit better. You can definitely still use this and then lay out a different kind of like arrangement if we wanted. You see, like if we just scrape a little bit more, we get that form back a little bit. We can always use that draw tool again. Instead of doing it so heavy, we just turn the strength down. Maybe a little bit higher. And we can do a little bit more like small detail in these areas. Like we don't have to overdo it basically. Like we can keep it really faint and subtle. So that's real nice to do as well. That gave you a little bit of a better look there. Some of you do want a little bit sharper perhaps. Do that. Scrape it back down. Oops, not quite the way I wanted it. You can also fill on top of it, right? Yeah, so it's a little bit of a weird kind of curve in there. I don't really like that. You can use the mask tool. So the mask tool, you go through, mask an area out. And you can use the mask menu, pie menu, which is A. So you can do A, invert, or clear, or whatever, smooth it if you need to. But you can use things like the grab tool here. So like if that's just not quite right, make the grab tool rather large. Even with all that texture and stuff on it, we can do things like this. Kind of pull that out a little bit. Not a big deal. Just remesh it. You'll have to work that a little bit more perhaps, but once it's done remeshing, go scrape it up and do whatever you want to do. You're going to spend some time on this. It's never as fast as you want it to be, but it's certainly is fun though. I think it's really enjoyable. Crease sharp. You can still go back through here and detail things up with crease sharp as well. And create nice little like cutouts of rocks and whatever else, cracks and things like that. It's a really cool way of working. Composition that you come up with, the initial composition is pretty important. So just keep that in mind. Like the way we had layered those different rocks in here. Very important, actually. Let's say you got to this point, you got something like this going. You can still duplicate this and still try layering things together. The only thing is that this is actually really noisy. It's not like much rest area for the eye or anything. So doing this, I don't think makes it look any better. If it was more like you should think like big shapes, right? Like the big shapes are the most important things. But sometimes you might be doing like a really flat surface for like a cliff wall or something, right? You can kind of stack things like this too. Could be quite useful. You can see if we worked it out a little bit better, we could end up with an interesting kind of like rock set doing this. So rocks in video games, oftentimes they're made kind of as like little modular pieces. If you look at how they like intersect with mountains or like the terrain in games, usually you have like really large cliff rocks. You might have distant mountains, distant rocks, mid vista rocks, but then you have ones that intersect with cliffs and things like that. They're really large, and you have like a large set, medium set, small set. So large on the side of a cliff, down towards the bottom, there might be some mediums, and then there's like the smaller stuff at the base, and then it gets into gravel, right? So it's kind of how it works out. So sculpting this kind of stuff can be really fun. The more you focus on that base shape, the better of a time you'll have. And you can certainly grab these at any time if you want to just keep adding to it, or you want to try something a little different. You can do that. So you can just try like doing something like this maybe real quick. Put in like a capstone on top or something. Maybe that works out. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows? But certainly give it a shot, right? So might do a couple of those or something too. Might not just be one, maybe a few. And you would have to sculpt those out and add all the detail to them as well. And you can do this to like add breakup. You can think of like the way brick walls are made sometimes, or buildings. You have like little trims to them. Sometimes you have that kind of effect with certain rock formations and structures and things. There's like some more vertical types and some more horizontals as well. Just pay particular attention to your references. It'll make more sense in that case. I'm going to combine these ones together real quick by the scale just in case. And we're just going to add some texture straight to it. I'm not even going to bother. Oh, let's remesh them real quick. I'm not even going to bother scraping them up or doing anything crazy right now. I just want to throw a little texture on there. You can, of course, bring in other alphas or height maps. And see how those work out for you. You see? So it's like a nice little break now in that area, perhaps. Yeah, so that composition's huge. It's a big part of all this. It's definitely going to give you either good or bad results. You can see we can keep building this up too, perhaps. It's not telling what we end up doing with this one, right? I think it's getting a little too noisy again. But yeah, you can imagine this being something like a jigsaw puzzle, right? Like, let's join all this together. Yeah. You can see the way we did it with the shapes now, using not as much strength on this. We get a much cleaner look anyways. I guess I still created a lot of duplicates or something. Didn't realize it. Man, still got more, huh? All right. So I'm just going to remesh this real quick. All the stuff on the interior will disappear when you remesh. It's almost like doing a Boolean union, but the remesher just combines it all together. So we'll go from the 12 million faces to, I don't know, back to 1,800,000 or something like that. Whatever it was. Well, it actually went up a little bit. Yeah. Anyways, that's nice. So you can imagine this becoming like a big cliff rock wall set at some point. Maybe you got to stack these doubled up sometimes or something like that, right? You just kind of intersect them or do whatever. Maybe they're horizontal ones, you know. Maybe you could do some stuff like that. This should allow you to kind of like rotate them, have them look nice too. You can see how that works out. So a lot of times you do them like walls. And so the low poly, you know, you would possibly even make off this. You could decimate it. Probably be better to do a manual retopo if you need like extreme low poly, but it is possible that you just decimate these. And you can see how that works out now, right? So you really want to take your time, sculpt on them, get all the little cracks and crevices, and use multiple alphas, and you know, really take your time with that sculpting process. But that's like the main tools there for it. The only one we didn't really get into, which is quite useful, is clay strips. I just want to point something out about clay strips real quick though, and that is if you just start sculpting with it, not really thinking about how it works, it kind of comes towards the camera, like the viewer, you, like what you're seeing, and so it tilts towards you. A lot of times this is a problem because when you start working something like this, it always creates like a tilt and it layers out, and so that's a little bit of an issue. It really likes to be worked like top down, but even then sometimes it does it, and as a result you can end up creating like really mushy meshes real quick. So whenever you start doing stuff like that by accident, the overhang's fine for the most part, as long as you're going to create a low poly that matches. But just scrape it down and make it flat again if you can. Like it doesn't have to be fully flat, but just scrape it down, work the edge a little bit maybe if you need to, and that'll be that right there, right? Cool. And so, yep, that's pretty much how that goes. Now, if you want to go through here and just kind of hit these on edges, you probably could, but you would want to make more of a purpose-built alpha for that, where you have like maybe like a line or something. But you could do this like this too. Scrape it down and just create some interesting kind of setups here. Control, do some fills. Use the regular fill tool too, so it's useful. Right? Because you can also scrape with it. Why not? Although the square scraper is way better though. It just works out. You know, that's one of the things I think Blender should add by default, is to have the option to use some kind of alphas, like square alphas and noise and stuff like that. Of course, you can always build noise in the texture panel, but you could probably even build a square alpha there, to be honest. I haven't tried it, but probably could. But I'd rather just, you know, go to Krita or something, Photoshop. Just build something real quick. You just do a square, right? And then Gaussian blur it a little bit, and you'll get a nice soft square like that. If you use a sharp one, it'll start to like just kind of like a repetitious look to it, and doesn't work as well usually. But anyways, I think you get the idea. Yeah, so we could spend all day trying to sculpt, and we're not going to do that in this video. We're just getting the basics started. So yeah, kit bash them together. You know, you can make dozens of pieces like this and then just have fun at it. You know, try to make them somewhat accurate to this, your reference, not this in particular image, but, you know, try to look at your references as much as you look at your sculpt. It's going to help you get more and more accurate results anyways. And so I'm just going to snag that color over there, I guess. Unexpected number, huh? I don't know what that is. This add-on I put back on Gumroad, by the way. It has little instructions on how to set it up, but you can just copy and paste colors like that, which is fun. Anyways, I was trying to figure out a good color to use here for the thumbnail, but I guess that's a terrible color. I don't really like it. That was could be worse, I guess, but yeah, we'll go with that one. That's much nicer. This will only do one at a time for now. So I figure out how to do multiple selections where it assigns to them all, which would be nice. But yeah, so there you go, guys. If you want to do some rock sculpting, that's the quickest, probably fastest way of doing it is just doing individual pieces, kit bashing them together basically, and refining them. That's kind of the 3-step, I guess, if you would. So hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll check you out in the next one. All right, take care.